What's going on, Tamer? So today I want to try something a little bit different. In a lot of my videos I cover deck profiles and meta reports, things like that. But I want to provide some sort of info regarding some situations that arise when you're actually playing the game, as well as some basic rulings for common questions that I see that pop up on Digimon boards or in Discord or on Facebook or wherever. But yeah, so today we're going to do something called Tamer Tips, where I cover 5 questions that I see pretty often come up. This one's going to be really basic, talking about a simple topic, just Digivolving, some of the Digivolving basics in the game. And I'm going to be using my Ulforce Digimon deck here to show off some of the effects and some of the rulings and situations that come up in common games. Anyway, let's get into it. First question that I often see is, can I Digivolve a Digimon that I just played? So for example, let's imagine that I played for 3 my Vmon here, and then I said, oh, I actually have Digimon to Digivolve him into my hand, so I want to play my Gorimon on top of him. Can I do that? Yeah, the answer is yes. As long as you have the memory to do it, you can play Digimon and then Digivolve it immediately. Just keep in mind that this Digimon cannot attack the same turn it was played. Even though you Digivolved it, because the original Digimon was played this turn, it can't attack. So on this list, probably the most common question that I've come across, and I've come across this probably like 20-30 times at this point, is, if I Digivolve a Digimon, can I activate its on-play effects when I Digivolve it? So for example, let's imagine I have out my Gizamon here, and I said, okay, I've got 2 memory, I'm going to Digivolve him into my Koredramon. Koredramon says, on play, draw 2 cards. So, I got good news and I got bad news. So the bad news is, on play effects do not actually trigger whenever you Digivolve a Digimon. So you actually have to play them raw on the board to actually get the on play effects. You can only get Digivolve effects from cards that say, evolve. So keep that in mind. So in this case, playing out Koredramon for 2 would not give me any effects because the draw 2 is an on-play effect. However, if I decided to play him for 6 instead, then I would get the draw 2. So just keep that in mind. On-play effects do not activate whenever you Digivolve. Only the evolve effects. So another common question I see is that if I Digivolve and I have a Digivolve effect, but the memory goes to my opponent's side of the board, do I get my effect? Because it's technically no longer my turn. And great question. So one thing that you should always remember is that in Digimon, your turn is technically not over until all of your effects are resolved. So what happens is, even if the memory counter tips over to the other side, you still get to trigger all of your effects before your opponent's turn starts and your turn ends. So let's take a look at this situation here. So I've got 0 memory, I've got my Koredramon that we talked about before, and I'm going to Digivolve him into a Crispy Eldramon. So Crispy Eldramon, when he Digivolves, he removes one of the Digimon sources under all of your opponent's Digimon. So even though I would spend 3 memory and it would go to my opponent's turn, his effect would still activate. All my opponent's Digimon would lose one of their Digimon sources, and then my opponent's turn would start. So let's imagine that my opponent plays a big Chungismon and it's got 6,000 DP, and I want to be able to stop its attack with my Shiramon. Unfortunately, Shiramon only has 5,000 DP even though he's a blocker. So if he were to block the attack, he would be destroyed, and I'd lose him. I said, okay, well, I don't want to lose my Shiramon, so what can I do? Can I Digivolve my Shiramon into an Air Force Vidramon and keep the blocker ability? Unfortunately, no. So whenever you Digivolve a Digimon, you do not get the effects from the previous Digimon from their effects that are written here. However, you do gain access to the effects that are written in their inheritance blocks at the very bottom here. So while I would lose blocker, Air Force Vidramon would have access to Gizamon's inheritance effect. So again, you can't keep the effects of the card itself, but you can keep the inheritance effects whenever you Digivolve. And keep in mind, just as a note, that you cannot use the inheritance effects of the top Digimon on a stack. So for example, I cannot use this inheritance effect here for Air Force Vidramon. I would have to Digivolve him into something even larger, for example, Ulforce Vidramon, to get access to that inheritance effect. Okay, so this is probably the most difficult situation we're going to handle today, but it's also the last situation, so congratulations for getting this far. So let's talk about, if a Digimon already has an effect and then it Digivolves, does it get to keep the effect? So this one is a bit trickier than the other questions we've talked about, but to answer the question, it kind of depends. So let's imagine I've got this situation right here. I have 2 Air Force Vidramons, and I have a Tamer I have a TIE Tamer on the board. So TIE Tamer says that whenever I have a Digimon with Vidramon in its name who attacks, I can rest him and then give one of my Digimon plus 1,000. What I decide to do is I attack with my Air Force Vidramon to my opponent's security, and then I rest the Tamer here, and I can give this Air Force Digimon plus 1000 DP. So now he's at 8000 because of the bonus here. And then I spend 3 memory to Digivolve him into Ulforce Digimon. Does the Ulforce Digimon get to keep the 1000 DP? Because in this case, there's no strings attached to the effect, where it has some requirement of, for example, being of a certain type or of a certain color, I do get to keep the effect. If the effect was tied to some requirement and I no longer met the requirement after Digivolving, I would lose the effect. But in this case, because it's just a free plus 1000, this Ulforce Digimon would be a 12,000 DP Digimon. There are some cases in the future where in BT7 and BT8, this ruling may be a little bit different because of new mechanics in the game, but for now, that's pretty much basically what you need to know. And that's it. So I want to keep this one super light, super basic for some of the people just getting into the game. However, let me know if you guys have any other questions that you'd like answered, or some effects or rulings that you'd like covered in some of the future videos. If the questions you guys ask in the comments below are simple enough, I can just answer them there. But if they're interesting, and I think a lot of people have been asking the same question, then I can, take it and put it into a future video as well. So again, thanks for watching, guys. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button before you get out of here, and I'll catch you in the next one. Be good.